Good morning, Reverend.
Dziffa, how are you doing?
I think you need to unmute yourself.
Oh, I'm unmuted.
Oh, perfect. I couldn't hear you. Perfect.
Yeah.
Now, dealing with the loss of a loved one, where do we even start from? Because it begins to feel as though your entire world is crumbling down.
Okay. First and foremost, good morning to all your viewers. And thank you for having me. My apologies, I couldn't be in studio today. Duty in other places called. And let me also use the opportunity to send our heartfelt, condolence to the family of His Excellency Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings, to Her Excellency Nana Konedua Jima Rawlings and the entire family. Our prayers and love and heartfelt condolence, are sent to you. It's our prayer that the Lord will uphold you with His mighty hand, even as you go through this season of grief and mourning. Once again, thank you, Dziffa. The loss of a loved one is something that many times, many people deal with it differently. So many people approach it in a different way. So many people embrace it in so many different, stages. Research has shown that people show their grief in so many diverse stages. Now, these has actually been, if you like, categorized into 6. But it is not always the time that you go through all the stages. Some people will show it in just one way, others will show it in another. Many times people, will portray an element of shock, sometimes denial. Others would have a lot of anger because of the loss. Others will go through, an element of depression. Some comes to the point of acceptability or acceptance, if you like. And grief can be particularly intense, and depending on the individual, how close you are to them. There are some people, when they lose a loved one, they barely have, if you like, to show any emotions. Some show so much, brokenness, so much depression, depending once again on how they take it. So grief can be coped with, in diverse ways. And each individual grieve in diverse ways or in various ways based on, any of these factors that I might have mentioned. Some, basically by virtue of their proximity, the closeness, the affection that they have for the person, it takes them a while to really get, over it. Others do, get over it in the shortest possible time. Others go, for years. And even with that, they need professional help to be able to cope through. And these are some of the things that, are real when it comes to grief. And there is nothing wrong with that. These are all natural. And that as an individual, you must be able to come to the level where you accept and you embrace the fact that this is what I have, this is what I'm going through, and these are the challenges that I have by way of me reacting to the loss of this loved one in my life.
How do we deal with the initial shock that comes with hearing that news? Because no one imagines losing their loved one.
Yeah. The initial shock many times can be, can come in diverse ways. There are others that cannot practically, hold themselves. Some that will cry their heads out. Some that get lean, or if you like, they lose weight immediately. Like I mentioned earlier on, people grieve in diverse ways and diverse levels. The shock many times can be handled by your social support system that you have. When you go through that moment, you need your other loved ones that are alive to show that level of love and support for you. If you don't have this, there are people that go through depression. There are people that, if you are not careful, would want to commit suicide because the reality of who this person they have lost is to them, and what value the person brings to their life, they kind of feel like there is no replacement for it, and their best way of really dealing with it is also to follow the person. So if you don't have a proper support system, a good counseling structure, a good, social network and social platform where you can be able to really air some of these grief. And let me say this, many times when people are grieving through their mourning, you will hear people say that, oh, and so on and so forth. Actually, we have to allow people to speak out. We have to allow people to cry. We have to allow people to grieve. It's part of the process of healing. It's part of the process that helps people to heal. When they shove it in, it becomes difficult. And I think that when they have that shock, it is always ideal that the support system around them helps for them to go through, that process of healing.
What kinds of things should we be telling ourselves as we deal with that news? Because the minute you hear it, you're thinking, I wake up next to this person every day. Even something as simple as walking down the street becomes impossible, because by the time you move from your house to the next block, so many memories of you and that person, you just don't know how to go on with your daily activities.
The truth is, this is not one of the things you sweep under the carpet. This is not one of the things you can procrastinate. This is not one of the things you can postpone. Unfortunately, it's a moment of grief. You need to allow yourself. You need to really respect that moment. The truth also is, you have spent a lot of quality time with the person. By way of me saying quality, it may be positive, it may be negative. They all contribute to the memories you share with the person. Now, these memories cannot be erased. These memories don't go away. With time, the intensity of the grief, the intensity of the mourning will tone down. But as fresh as it is many times, it is okay to allow, that grief, that, moment where the person is going through those tough times. However, don't ever forget, this is the time you need your loved ones closer to you even than before. Because at that moment, you're fragile. At that moment, you are weak. At that moment, you are depressed. At that moment, the sadness has a way of dealing with you physically, emotionally, and psychologically. And that is why you need the best of your support system. In the good book, the Bible says that in the multitude of counselors, there is safety. So the more people you have around you, the better it becomes for you to go through those times. So many times in our social circles, in our family systems, in our tradition, when someone loses a loved one, the entire family or most part of the family move into the house. They try to be there for the person. They will sleep in the same room with the person. They will try and service and support the person because they need it. That is the time of their depression, their lowest moments. So they need as much support as they can get. And that is one of the ways that we can be able to allow people to go through, their pains of coming through the griefs and the mournings that they have to go through. But please don't take this away from anyone. When you lose a loved one, it is normal. It is natural for you to be feeling that way. It is natural for you to go through those, situations, and it must be allowed for the person to grieve. Just offer them the support they need, and with time, the tensions of the grief and the mourning will subside.
How do we deal with the temptation to repress what we're feeling? Because as you mentioned earlier, people will be around you and say, "Bemen soon." You have to look strong for the children. You have to look strong for the family. How do we resist that temptation to repress how we're truly feeling?
The truth is that many times the way people deal with issues is how they want you to deal with it as well. And if you are not careful to many times listen to some of these suggestions, you might end up hurting yourself even more. People repress, if you like, suppress some of these emotions into them until one day they cannot take it anymore. I don't know how come this has become accepted in our culture that Bemen, I always say that the best of men at their best are still men. it is ideal for us to embrace the understanding that, humans are humans. And as part of our lives, we grieve sometimes, we mourn sometimes. When we are sad, we cry. These elements of Bema, Usua, and Palano, you need to be strong. Actually, when I cry and I go through those, processes, I am becoming stronger so that I can be able to stand for the next person. When you suppress it, you are building a lot of psychological and emotional fragility that when you rather break down, if you are not careful, the repercussions of that could be something that is irreparable. This is why it's ideal that we allow people to grieve. Yes, it's okay to comfort people, but there are many ways we can be able to show this comfort without having to tell people to suppress their feelings and their emotions. Those emotions need to be, coming out. The weeping, the cry, the tears must flow. It is okay. It is natural, because these are ways by which people will be able to show their grief. There are other people, no matter who they lose, they will never cry, but they do things that will surpass your understanding. Some of them get aggressive, some of them get very angry, some of them become erratic, and it's seasonal, They will be there, and then when they connect into any of the memories, they have a very strange reaction. All these things, and this is why I always say that when you see some of these things in your family members, it's ideal that you speak to a professional, a counselor, a psychologist, someone that can be able to help you go through the stages so that you can be able to deal with it as effectively as possible.
Now let's talk about the family members, the friends. How should we empathize with the person that's grieving? What are some of the things we should be careful to not say to worsen what they are going through?
Let me start with a personal experience. I have this auntie who passed on, peace be unto her soul. I call her Michael Power, and anyone that is watching me who's related knows who I'm talking about. And she has a way of grieving that will give you energy. She has a lot of, comic character by her natural self. So when she comes around, she does a lot and says a lot that really puts a smile on your face. Sometimes she tries to mimic the one who passed on. And as much as everyone is crying, we are laughing and crying and remembering this loved one. And I think it's been, for me, one of the best ways I have seen people go through the most challenging loss of their, of a loved one. But that is her way of dealing with it. She brings comedy and laughter, mimicking the character we've lost, the good and the bad, the ugly of the person, and people laugh about it. You are crying and laughing at the same time. Many times I don't even know how that is possible. But yes, that is one of the things that, I came to see from her. Aside of that, there are others that will sit around and really say no much. They won't say much as long as they can be with you. They are in your environment. When you need something, they are sensitive. So if you need water, or you need to eat, these are people that will offer that support for you. So they are checking. So they want to be able to offer you food. They want to encourage you that at least try and eat something, because you lose appetite when you go through the seasons of mourning, and they are there to just offer you that. And many times, whatever you want, whatever even you don't want, they want to make sure that, they are serviceable. They are there to support you. They are there to be the shoulder you can cry on. There are others who come around that say a lot, all right? And many times, that is where some people are situated. There are others, first and foremost, that will cry. And as long as they keep crying, you, the one that have, the loss, will also cry. But there are those that will come and they will say much. Some will say a lot to encourage you. Sometimes, if you are not careful, you will say things that don't even need to be said. I remember one time we went to visit someone, on my pastoral duties for a loved one, or a member that lost a loved one. And one pastor showed up and said that it's okay, God gave and God took. Man, that was some very awkward moment. yes, God gave and God took. We all understand that. But I mean, that is not the time to remember, or to remind a loved one to remember someone they've lost, So you must be very careful. And I always say that if you don't have anything really to say, please don't say it. It's okay just to sit around. It's okay to put a hand on the person. It's okay just to be in an environment where the person can see that you are offering your support, you are offering your love, you are offering that care. That is sometimes even enough. But if you have something to say, encourage the person, that empathy, it becomes part of the entire process. Say, if it was you, what will you do? All right. So how would you want people to relate to you in a situation like that? So many times when I go into an environment like that, I don't say much. I only will share a word of prayer and a word of encouragement, and that will be it. As long as I stay there, I won't say much, unless we are bringing up stories to to remember, to share some of the memories of this person, to laugh about, to help us remember, to help us all weep, grieve together, and mourn. And I think it's all part of the process that people, friends, family, loved ones who go near the person should be able to adapt.
Thank you very much, Reverend Bernard Osei-Duah, for being with us and helping us understand how to deal with the loss of a loved one. And I'm sure next week we'll talk about how to accept that loss, because that's a completely different journey that we have to go through as well. Of course, Reverend Osei-Duah is a CX and HR performance consultant and coach. We hope you've learned something about dealing with the loss, emotional intelligence, allowing yourself to be vulnerable so that you can really heal. Hi there. We hope you enjoyed the show.
Make sure to subscribe, like, comment, and share with your friends.
This is Breakfast Daily on Citi TV.
Join the Breakfast Daily team Monday through Fridays from 7:30 a.m. to 10. Join us for breakfast daily, only on Citi TV.